Judge, the only thing that I would, do I need to wait for the kind of hearing?
Oh, we get Con. Yeah. We walked right out. She's sitting in her office. Literally talking to me 2 nights ago. Glad you right there waiting for one of us to tell us to start. Okay.
Judge, if I could, for the record, it's my understanding that the state this morning at some point in time is going to call Dr. Daniel Brown, who's a pathologist in this matter. And of course, I have a continuing objection to the admission of the autopsy photographs. One thing I don't know, I mean, I've never been involved in a situation where it's been being live streamed or televised. I'm just concerned as to whether or not the streaming of this case is also going to include the photographs, the autopsy photographs, and I just would have an objection to that. I don't know what my objection is, but I would object to it as not being, I would not think for the purpose of transmitting this case to the general public over the airways that it's necessary to show autopsy photographs.
Well, unfortunately, the law does not distinguish between a public courtroom when you come here and a public courtroom on the television. And as far as I can tell, I don't have any legal basis for prohibiting particular stuff other than maybe a sexual assault victim's name or face or some very so while I appreciate your concern and I don't necessarily disagree with you, I don't think there's any legal way to prevent them from broadcasting anything that is otherwise open to the folks if they were sitting in the courtroom. So your objection is noted, and I will deny any motion to take any action about that. I don't think I can do that legally.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you bring them in, please, Bob.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to go. Make sure your cell phones are turned off.
Music. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to resume. Mr. Dwayne, you can call your next witness.
The state calls Casey Cochran.
All right.
Can you raise your hand, please? You swear or affirm the testimony about you to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Just make sure you speak up so everybody. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Casey Cochran.
Can you spell your name for court reporter?
Casey, last name is Cochran.
And Ms. Cochran, how are you employed?
I'm currently a pediatric nurse practitioner at Pediatric Convenient Care.
Okay. How long have you been a nurse practitioner?
A year and a half.
Okay. And before that, were you in the medical field?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I was a RN, previously at Primary Pediatrics for 9 years.
For 9 years. Okay. Were you working there November 17th of 2020?
Yes.
And what was your role at that time for Primary Pediatrics?
A nurse.
Okay. And so do you remember specifically the date that I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Did something happen that day? Is that the norm?
Absolutely.
And what happened?
I was called from the front desk that somebody up front needed help. And so I went up front, but I guess I had passed the gentleman that had Carter, and so I met him in the back hallway and came upon a gentleman holding Carter who was lifeless, and we put him in room 4 and laid him on the table.
Okay. When you say lifeless, what do you mean?
He was limp, eyes were rolled in the back of his head, mouth was open, not breathing, pale.
So you said you put him on the table in room 4? Okay. What happened then?
Then I asked the gentleman what his name was, and he said Carter. And so I tried to stimulate him and said, Carter, Carter, trying to wake him up. And he wasn't responding. And so then I checked for pulses and did not feel a pulse.
Okay. What happened? Well, let me ask you this. Did you know who the man that brought Carter in was?
I did not.
At some point, did you figure out who he was? Okay. So when you didn't feel a pulse on Carter, what happened?
I then lifted his shirt up just to check for air movement, but I didn't see anything. At about that time, a nurse practitioner walked in and was checking after me, and we started CPR.
Okay. And who all was in the room?
Initially, it was just me, and then Amy Wood, the nurse practitioner, came in and started chest compressions.
Okay. Was it just you two, or were there kind of a bunch of people following?
They were coming in as Amy walked in, but initially it was just me with Carter and the gentleman.
Okay. And so I think you said, is it Dr. Wood?
Amy Wood.
Amy Wood.
She's a nurse practitioner.
Okay, nurse practitioner. I apologize. She was performing CPR.
She started chest compressions.
At any point, did you guys get a pulse?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Was CPR the only procedure that was performed at that time?
When she started chest compressions, other employees showed up with the crash cart, and we started with the ambu bag and did the chest compression CPR.
What's the ambu bag?
That is what you put around the nose and the mouth to breathe air into their lungs.
Was there any trachea that was put in, or
No.
they call it like a trach or
Yeah,
something?
no, sir.
Okay. Can you explain to us what that is for the jury, please?
The trach.
Yeah.
We have access to that, but it wasn't done. But it's a tube, an artificial tube that would go down into the esophagus, into the lungs, and breathe for the child through the ambu bag.
Now, was there, I call it an AED machine. Did you guys have one of those?
We did.
What is that?
That is a machine that you put pads on, and it pretty much shocks the body to hopefully get a heartbeat going, or put the heart rate into a normal sinus rhythm, which is like a normal heartbeat.
Okay. And was that employed on Carter?
Yes.
And what happened?
The machine actually tells you if there is what they call a shockable rhythm, So it detects something that you're able to shock the heart. And it did say there was a shockable rhythm. And so we did all, we all cleared and shocked Carter.
Okay. And what happened after that?
His body was shocked, and then it kind of just went back flatline on the AED. There was no heartbeat.
Were there chest compressions?
We started back chest compressions, yes, sir.
Okay. And I think some of your coworkers called 911, correct?
Yes.
So at some point, did EMS arrive?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened once they got there?
Once they got there, we got Carter on the gurney. Chest compressions were being performed as he was being taken out of the building all the way into the ambulance.
Okay. And what did you, so did the ambulance take him somewhere
No,
else?
they stayed in the parking lot for a little bit. I believe they were trying to get an IO on him because we couldn't get
What is that?
An IO actually goes into the bone, and it's another way that he can get fluids or life-saving
So it's a different kind of IV?
solutions. Correct.
Okay, okay. And were they, so the EMS is still there trying to do that. At some point, do you see them leave, do you know?
I don't think I saw them leave. Like, I didn't visualize them leaving.
Okay. And when EMS had Carter, what were you doing?
I stayed outside with the gentleman that brought him in, just kind of consulting him, and I believe I asked where Mom was, and he was saying like 5 minutes away, but I kind of just stood out there in the parking lot for a little bit.
Okay, did Mom ever show up? Was he on the phone at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, did you overhear anything?
I did hear
Yeah,
the
of course,
gentleman.
please, I would object to that. I mean, that's blatant hearsay.
Well, it's a statement by a co-conspirator.
The objections overruled.
What did you hear him say?
I heard the gentleman tell Mom on the phone, I should have brought him in last night when you told me to.
Okay. And, I mean, it seems, was that kind of the only part of the conversation that you picked up?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you know what he was driving?
It was a Mustang. I don't remember the color.
Do you recall if you saw him leaving the Mustang?
Yes.
Okay. Was that when EMS had left?
I don't remember.
Nothing further on.
Mr. Grove, Chief, with you.
I do have a few questions. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Cochran, my name is Jeff Brew. I'm a lawyer from Warner Robins. You're representing Ms. Davis. How long was it that you said that you worked for pediatrics?
9 years.
You were familiar with Ms. Davis?
I was not. I believe that I worked for Robert Ford, and I think that Carter was a patient of Dr. Waters, so it was kind of on the opposite side of the building.
Okay. But in any event, did you come to know that this child was a regular patient of your place of employment?
Yes, sir.
All right. And on this particular day, well, I guess subsequent to this happening, you wrote a statement that you provided to, who did you provide the statement to, this written statement?
I was just told to do a statement, and I believe an officer came and picked the statements up. I didn't really, I think I handed it to my manager, who was elected.
But you were asked by your employer, everyone was asked to prepare a statement.
Yes, sir.
And you had stated on this document that you wrote that it was around 8:47 that particular morning. Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
And that's when Mr. Benton brought the child in. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The whole time that Mr. Benton was with the child was his Was he on FaceTime with Ms. Davis?
I knew that he was on the phone with her, but I didn't know it was FaceTime.
Okay, but they were talking to each other?
Yes, sir.
It was sort of real frantic.
Yes.
Everything was real frantic. And the child was taken to room 4 where you started doing some work on him, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice any bruises on his body?
I did not.
Did you notice any blood?
Mm-hmm.
And the concern was he was brought in for, he maybe had some sort of asthma attack, is that right?
I think we knew that was his history, and so we were just thinking it was respiratory issues,
Right.
not knowing the whole story.
Okay. But you didn't notice anything on his body that would indicate any sort of injury?
No, sir.
Was the child wearing a diaper when he was brought in?
He had on a pull-up and a t-shirt.
Okay.
That's all.
And in the pull-up, was there any urine in the pull-up that you know of?
I don't recall.
Was there any sort of bowel movement?
Not that I know of.
Nothing you know of. Just a second, Sean.
Okay.
Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you, Mr. Cochran.
Excuse, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. You're free to go, stay as you wish.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown.
All right.
Thanks. No, I don't.
Can you raise your right hand, please?
Sure,
Swear affirm testimony about today will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Can you state your name for the record?
Sure, my name is Daniel Brown.
Can you spell it for the board?
Sure, D-A-N-I-E-L-B-R-O-W-N.
Mr. Brown, are you currently employed?
Yes, part-time, yes.
Can you go ahead and explain that?
I worked with Georgia Bureau of Investigation as the medical examiner in Augusta for 15 years. And when I retired, I went to work for the city of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania for another 5 years, and then moved back to Akron, Ohio, because that's where my wife's family's from. And then those are basically the jobs that I've had.
For Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia.
City of Philadelphia, right, medical examiners.
And when did you retire from GBI?
2014.
2014? Okay. Did you ever come back and work for GBI in any capacity?
I do. After I retired, when I left Philadelphia and I came back to Ohio, I was contacted by GBI and they asked me if I would be interested in working as a part-time medical examiner. So I accepted that in June of 2020, and so I've been doing that ever since. I come back 1 week a month to do cases, either in Savannah or Macon.
And can you explain what exactly a medical examiner does?
Medical examiner is a physician who's trained in forensic pathology, and we basically are charged with determining the cause and manner of death in whatever jurisdiction we're in.
So you perform autopsies?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what kind of education do you have?
I earned a bachelor's degree at Kent State in Ohio. I earned my medical degree at American University in Coral Gables, Florida. I did my training in anatomic pathology, which is just general pathology, at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I did my forensic training at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of Maryland in Baltimore. And after that, I came to work for Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I was the medical examiner in Augusta.
Dr. Brown, will you do me a favor? Will you pull that mic a little bit that way so it's in front of your mouth
sure,
when you
sure.
turn?
Yeah.
And there you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
No problem.
So let me back up a little bit. You said you got your undergraduate degree from Kent State?
Yeah.
And that's a 4-year degree?
Correct.
And what was your degree in?
Criminal justice and biology.
Okay, biology. And then you went to medical school?
Yes.
Okay, and how long was medical school?
4 years.
4 years, okay. And then afterwards, where did you go?
Then I went to University of Tennessee to do a residency in pathology.
And what is the residency?
A residency is after you train as a medical, no matter what type of physician you become, if you choose to specialize, you do a fellowship in internal medicine, cardiovascular surgery, whatever your interest is. My interest was in forensic pathology, so I did my fellowship, which is 2 years in addition to my 3 years at the University of Tennessee, which was general pathology. I did 2 years at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Baltimore, and that was my fellowship. And then from there I went.
How many years was that?
Total? Or you mean just for forensic
The
pathology?
residency and then the fellowship.
Residency was 3 years and fellowship was 2 more.
And in this residency and this fellowship, were you actually performing autopsies?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, are you a board certified doctor or MD?
Yeah, certified by the Board of Forensic Medicine.
Are you still?
Yes.
And so this residency and fellowship, that's like training and performing autopsies, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Roughly how many autopsies have you performed in your career?
Over 15,000, I don't know the exact number. I do about 300 autopsies a year for the last 24 years, whatever it's been.
And have you had the occasion to testify in court about any of your autopsies?
Yes.
About how many?
How many times testifying?
Yes.
200 or 300. I mean, it's more than 200. I don't know if it's 300, but it's more than 200.
Now, those times have you been deemed an expert in forensic pathology?
I have.
And is it all the time, some of the time?
I've never not been, but
Okay. So let me do this. So when you perform an autopsy, can you just give us just like a 360,000 foot view of kind of what that process is?
Sure. Whenever, and I'll mostly talk about it as far as Georgia goes, whenever we get notified by a coroner that there has been a death, then we decide with the coroner whether or not it's a case that needs to be seen. Some cases do not need to be seen by a medical examiner. If we deem that it is necessary to be seen, it's brought to our facility. The coroner brings it, and half the body's been put in a body bag from wherever the scene was, whether they died at the hospital or died at home or wherever. They get put in a body bag. It's brought to a GPI, medical examiner's office. First thing we do is we open the bag and we take photographs. And this is just to show, not just for our purpose, but for this kind of purpose, is to see what we saw whenever we received the body. After we've done that, then the body is, we do clothing, and we look for any signs of injury or any signs of pathology. And once we've done that and documented it, either written word or photographs, usually photographs, if there is any injury or pathology to document. After that, then we do either a limited autopsy or we do a full close. A limited autopsy would be somebody that had a history of heart disease and passed out at home. We may do a limited on them just to show that they actually did have, the coronary artery disease. Or a full autopsy. Full autopsy is we look at all the internal organs, the brain, all of the body's tissues inside. We look to see if there's any kind of injury or pathology in the internal examination.
Okay. And so, did you perform an autopsy in this case?
I did.
Okay. And so let me...
Judge, before we get too far, I have no questions as to the qualifications of this witness.
Then at this point, the state would ask the court to deem Dr. Brown an expert in forensic pathology.
We have no objection based on what I've heard.
He'll be so qualified.
Thank you. So, do you need a copy of your report to go over this?
I stuck one in my pocket.
Okay, all right.
You wanna use
Well,
that?
don't read from it. I just want to make sure you have it in front of you in case you need
Okay.
it.
What if I want to refresh my memory?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll handle that if we need
Okay.
to.
All right.
So you received a body in this case, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the name?
No, off the top of my head. The deceased's name was Carter Ambrose.
How old was he?
He was 2 years and 10 months.
So you performed a full autopsy on him, correct?
That's correct.
Is an autopsy on a child different than an adult?
Well, we look at everything on a child, but we will look for things that maybe a child has, as a child would not normally be able to say to their parents or to their caretakers. So we look for signs of injury on children that are nonverbal, or they're one of the degree that they could talk to somebody and tell them how they were hurt or how they were injured, or what was happening with them. We usually get that from parents, and whether they had high fever, whether they had vomiting, and things like that. But we look for all these things, especially in a child, because we want to make sure that we cover all our bases as far as like injury and pathology.
Okay. And you say you're looking for injury, stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Do you document that?
We do.
How do you do that?
We do the photographs, and I document it in my report.
All right, so I have what's previously been shown to defense counsel states exhibits 2 through 11. Can you look at these real quick?
Sure.
You recognize them?
I do.
What are they?
These are photos taken at autopsy of this individual.
Okay. And are they a fair and accurate representation of the individual or this child at the time you perform the autopsy?
They are.
Do they appear to have changed or altered in any way?
No, and we have our markers in the pictures. When we take a picture of anything, we have the case number of that individual, and it's in the photograph, so that we can show that this was our picture that we took.
And you're on the state law for the evidence states exhibits 2 through 11.
Fair admitted with the objection continuing.
So I think you said something about a number, right? So I'm going to, with the court's permission, put this on the overhead.
Right.
And yeah, you can turn around and
Right,
go.
sure.
So is that the number that you're talking about?
Yes, this is an identification photograph. Everybody that comes to the office, they get an identification photograph. It's just a placard and their face shot.
So when you, this is kind of the beginning of the stage, right?
This is right at the beginning of the autopsy.
And so when you were getting ready to perform your autopsy, did you have any impressions as to kind of what may have caused the death, or any backstory on why he was there?
As far as the backstory goes, we were told that it was taken to his family pediatrician because he had been having breathing troubles and had been given breathing treatments. And then when he was at the pediatrician, he was unresponsive, so the pediatrician began resuscitative measures while he waited for EMS, who then, I guess, took him to the hospital.
Okay. And so I guess it was your impression that maybe you were looking at some kind of respiratory problem?
That's the impression that we were given at the beginning was that this would sound like a child with some type of inflammatory awareness.
And when you performed your autopsy, did you find any evidence that there was some kind of disease, respiratory disease?
No, we did not.
Okay. What did you find?
We found, well, first of all, an external examination, we found a lot of injury on the body. And it would be recent, and I would describe that as an older or remote injury because it's been already scheduled. But these injuries were all within a recent time frame. There weren't hours between them. So then I just note those, and I note those on the body.
Okay, so what external injuries did you look at?
We saw some abrasion. Abrasion is just a scraping of the skin. We saw abrasion around the nose here. We saw some contusion, which is bruising around the corner of the mouth and on the inside of the lips. I'd have to look at the report, but I'll
So
say.
if you need to look at your report, go ahead.
Right nostril is a red abrasion. That's the way I describe abrasion. If it's an older abrasion, they dry. Eventually, they become a scab. But if they dry, there's no fresh hemorrhage or anything, and it has a kind of a brown color to it. When I describe it as red, that means that's from either the contusion, if it's contusion, or it's from the abrasion, it's the hemorrhage from an abrasion. This was, I had an abrasion on the right upper lip, an abrasion on the left upper lip, and an abrasion on the mucosal surface, which is the inside of the surface of the lower lip, So that's a contusion on the inside of the lip. There were a couple round red-blue contusions, which are recent.
Where were they?
Oh, this was on the left side of the face. Some injuries, contusion. A small contusion on the right chest, adjacent to the sternum, next to the breastbone. The round red contusion on the right upper abdomen, along the costal margin, which is right where your rib cage, if you feel your rib cage, that's the costal margin. Blue-green discoloration on the abdomen, that's another contusion. Red contusion on the abdomen, overlying the umbilicus, which is your belly button. A squared red abrasion, a couple of them, on the underside of the scrotum. So just underneath the scrotum. And a couple small linear red abrasions on the right mid-abdomen, so the middle of the abdomen.
So I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 3. If you can look at
Sure.
it behind you. So what are we looking at in this picture?
This is the
Unfortunately, the laser pointer does not work very well
Okay.
on my new fancy TV screen. So
If you
feel
need-
free to stand up,
Yeah,
doctor,
stand.
if you need to, but I want you to speak up real
Oh, I
loud
will. Okay.
for the jury.
All right, I will. This is a contusion around the cheek here. This is some dermatitis. It's not really, it looks worse than it is. It's not really, this is, some kids get that chafing. But this is the contusion. That's a red contusion right there.
So let me just focus on that
Sure.
contusion that you're
Sure.
talking about.
Sure.
When you say contusion, what do you mean?
A contusion, I'm sorry, is a bruise.
A bruise? Okay. So
It's the blood vessels, under a bruise, the blood vessels are broken, but they have not broken the surface. So then this coloration you see is the hemorrhage underneath.
could that contusion that you're referring to in this photo on his cheek be some kind of reaction to something else, like an allergic reaction?
No, that's not.
That's not an allergic reaction. I'm going to publish States 5 now. And what are we looking at in States 5?
These are the contusions I talked about on the upper lip. And this is the mucosal surface of the inside of the lip. and that's a contusion on the inside on the hand side.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. So the CPR is performed on this child. When you're doing an autopsy, do you look for signs or injuries that could be a result of CPR?
Yes.
Okay. And what would those be?
Well, in adults, it's usually fractured ribs
Okay.
from compressions, because the EMTs work them very hard. And but in a child, most of the time we don't see injury because the child, especially if somewhere under the age of 4 or 5 years old, their lungs or their rib cage is still very pliable, so you can put a lot of pressure on that without causing any breakage or anything like that. I didn't see any signs under with the sternum or around the ribs of hemorrhage.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't quite ask you the question I meant to ask.
Okay.
So oftentimes when people are trying to keep someone alive, do they give like trachea? Do they try to get oxygen to them?
Right.
Okay. And do you look for injury from that?
Oh yes, we do. Yes, well he had an endotracheal tube somebody put in, which I can't just count that as not being part of the injury on the lip there.
Okay.
Up there, not so much, but here, that's in the same place where they replaced the endotracheal tube.
The upper lip, not so much?
Not so much on the upper lip, no, because the tube going in here and down.
Okay. And as part of that, I mean, so what is this little part right here?
This,
Yes.
that's the frenulum.
Frenulum? Okay. When
And that has a little bit of contusion on it, but that, again, that could be possibly from the endotracheal tube.
Okay. So I'm going to publish now States Exhibit 6. I apologize for the glare. I'm trying my best here.
It's okay.
What is being depicted in this photograph?
On this, I'm just showing, or we're just showing the different. There were some areas of bruising or contusion on the abdomen. And that's what these little areas are right here around. And this is on the right side of the abdomen right here. And that's where those injuries are. This is the costal margin, or the edge of the rib cage would be right down along here.
Okay. So you said areas plural.
Yeah, there's several.
Several. So can you specifically point in that picture to where they are?
This I will need my report. Red contusion on the right upper chest adjacent to sternum. So that'd be this one right by that. There's a well-healed scar that has nothing to do with this. But it's right beside that well-healed scar is a contusion on that one. There was one on the midline abdomen along the upper margin. That would be this right up here. Those areas right there. There's another red contusion on the left upper abdomen along the costal margin. So that would be this contusion. This is the costal margin right here. So it'd be right in that area there. That's what that discoloration is. And then the other sort of other injuries on the body.
Yeah. So, and this is States Exhibit 8.
This just shows some of the same areas of hemorrhage around the umbilicus, the belly button. There's some contusions around there that I measured and took photographs of.
So how many injuries are to that that you locate? Six
different.
And you found other external injuries, correct?
Yes, there was abrasion on the underside of the scrotum.
Okay, and this is States Exhibit 10.
Yeah, this is an abrasion, not a contusion. It can be contused abrasion. It can have an abrasion that also has hemorrhage around it under the skin. And this is the abrasion though, right here. And then there's some contusion around that. But this is the injury that's right underneath the underside of the scrotum, which is right, what they call peritoneal area, right underneath between your buttocks and your scrotum.
So you can have a seat.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, thank you.
sorry.
we just talked about the external injuries that you observed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as part of the autopsy that you performed on the child, did you find any internal injuries?
We did.
What kind of internal injuries did you find?
The major internal injury that I saw was a laceration of the liver. And I'll refresh my memory here with how long it was. A 2.5 inch laceration of the liver at the attachment of the falciform ligament, which is where liver has a right lobe and a left lobe, and there's a ligament that goes right between them. It's right next to the largest lobe of the liver. There's two lobes. Largest was on the right.
Now, I think you said it was either the main or the major injury that you located.
There were other hemorrhages in here.
Well, then let's talk about those.
Okay,
You
sure.
want all of the internal injuries that you found?
Okay, sure. There was a hemorrhage on the scalp. When we reflect the scalp, what we do is we reflect the scalp means that we open it. In other words, we make a cut across from one side of the head to the other, and then we take the scalp and pull it forward this way and pull it forward and back. And then that in the right and the back right, right posterior parietal, which is back in this area, there was hemorrhage in the scalp there, so that was indicated that there was some type of trauma in that area. Something caused that hemorrhage in the scalp. Also, there were there was also at the vertex. There was some hemorrhage at the vertex, which is the top of the scalp. The anterior abdominal wall muscles, in other words, your six-pack or whatever you want to call those muscles in the front, the rectus abdominis muscles, there was hemorrhage in those. So that's from some time of trauma to those muscles that would cause them to bleed. The tissue in the mesentery. What the mesentery is the fat, in your small and large bowel, kind of goes like this, fish like back and forth through your lower abdomen. And between that, what holds that together is mesentery fat. And there's a lot of blood vessels in there. Well, there was hemorrhage in these blood vessels and in the fat of the small and large bowel. And then the laceration of the liver was that was the major injury that I saw. And about 200 ml of blood, which is
When you say ml, what do you mean?
oh, milliliters, I'm sorry, 200 milliliters of blood, which is probably the size of the amount that would hold in a cola can. There was hemorrhage in the pancreas, which is right there with the small, right next to the small valve. There was hemorrhage in the testicular cord, which is the cord that holds the testicles. So near the same area as that abrasion was. And there was some serosal hemorrhage of the intestines. Serosal surface of the intestines is just the top surface, and there was some hemorrhage in that. Also from trauma.
All right, so this is State's Exhibit 11.
Okay,
What is that?
that's the this is the right lobe of the liver. The liver sits right up here under your diaphragm, or right below your diaphragm. And this falciform ligament is this thing right here, and it's right in the middle between these two lobes. Like I said, this is the right lobe of the liver is large, and it tapers and gets smaller over this side. But there was trauma to this part of the stomach that caused that to tear. The liver is a pretty solid organ, but it's still very friable, meaning you can tear it or push into it easily.
Okay.
So it doesn't take much force.
Sit back down. So as part of your role as a medical examiner performing the autopsy, do you determine whether there's a method and manner of death?
We do. That's our job is to determine cause and manner.
Okay. And what information do you use in order to make that determination, provide that opinion?
Well, partly is we base it upon the coroner and law enforcement because they would tell us what circumstance would require this person to brought it to us to be the autopsy. The other thing is then we take into consideration what injuries we see, and is it something that would be consistent with one incident, or could it be consistent with several different incidents, especially with chocolate?
So when you say incident, what do you mean?
I mean, was it just one thing? Was it just a lacerated liver, or was there other things that we can document that were? So that's our part of our job, is to determine all these different things, whether what one or which ones contributed to this person's demise.
Okay. And did you find just one thing?
The main thing was hemorrhage was the main reason. The laceration of the liver, hemorrhage, and the hemorrhage in the abdominal, the intestines, things, that all collectively contributed to that.
Okay. You said collectively.
Yeah.
But there's evidence of other injuries, right?
The injuries, the external injuries, were all ones that we would consider. We would consider those. We'd look for something, especially in the shop. We look to see what kind of injuries they have. In children, a lot of the injuries that we see on a child are not necessarily in this case, but when children will see where if they're a toddler or something, they may have scrapes and things like that from walking into furniture or falling down or things like that. But we don't see a lacerated liver with that.
Okay. Well, when you performed the autopsy, did you find any of those bruises or scrapes on any of his extremities?
Well, not on the extremities. It was mostly on his mouth and his abdomen.
Okay. So what, in your opinion, was the cause of death?
It was a blunt force trauma of the abdomen and the liver.
Okay. And was that laceration of the liver?
Correct.
Blunt force impact?
Correct.
Laceration of the liver? Okay. And what was the manner?
The manner of death we determined to be homicide.
Okay. So you said that you based this on kind of the information that you gathered plus the autopsy, whatever you find.
Right.
Autopsy. Is this a scenario where it could be an accident?
In this case, no.
Okay, why do you say that?
These injuries are ones that it doesn't support an accident. If a lacerated liver is something I see like a car accident. Lacerated liver is serious. I mean, that's a major injury. And the story that we were told, or the information we were provided, didn't indicate that this child had been in any kind of situation where he would get an injury to his liver that devastating.
And you say it's a major injury, and I think you kind of put it in the context of a car accident.
That's right.
Are you referring kind of to the force that's needed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How much force do you think is needed to lacerate the liver?
Well, it would take a significant amount because the liver is somewhat protected by the abdomen, so you've got to put some force onto that. And the reason I say car accident is because we do see that in car accidents. We see a lot more injuries than just that in a car accident. But this was directed, focused on that abdomen and that liver. In other words, this was to get that falling down on your belly. You're not going to get a lacerated liver. Falling out of a bunk bed, you're not going to get a lacerated liver. The only way you would get that is if you fell onto something, and it would have to be something significant that was hard, that enough that whenever you fell on it, or were high enough to fall on it, and hit it hard enough to push in far enough to lacerate your liver. We don't see that in kids.
And is it fair to say that if you did fall off a bunk bed and land on a traffic cone, you would see one impact?
Well, yeah, if we're talking about like one of those plastic cones or something like that, and that would have to, in my mind, that plastic cone would maybe not even, but that type of shape, it gives you a focus point is the top of that cone. If you're falling from a height and you hit that, possibly went in deep enough through the bowel and hit the liver and lacerated. But it just falling from the bunk bed or something like that, I wouldn't expect to see a lacerated liver.
Could this potentially have been caused by CPR?
It's unlikely. The reason I say that is because the CPR that from what I understand, that was performed was done at the pediatrician's office, and a pediatrician would know not to push on the abdomen to do CPR.
Right. So when you're doing CPR,
you're pushing on the chest over the line of the sternum.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So it took a while for this report to be generated, right? your autopsy report?
It takes a little while, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this one probably took longer than normal.
Well, we had to wait for toxicology results, and we had to
Okay.
wait for histology results,
Okay.
which is looking at tissue under the microscope.
Okay. And so, I think, were you able to determine the time of death?
No.
Or, excuse me, let me rephrase that. A time for when the injury occurred.
I can't give you, I mean, it wasn't days, it was probably hours.
Well, and that's what I'm referring to. So, do you recall a number of months later that there was a meeting with some people where you guys went over it and
Well,
discussed
no, with the chief there.
With the chief.
The chief medical examiner, his name is Jonathan Ives and staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, was there a time frame for the injury?
I would have to look back, I'm not sure, Jonathan's very good at what he does, but I don't remember.
No, that's okay.
He gave us
That's
the
okay.
time.
But you just recall that there was
No,
another
yeah,
medical
that's-
examiner
Right,
who
this was
got
important.
involved.
Right,
in
this was an important case to look at very carefully, so I included the chief medical examiner, and I don't remember if there's anybody else, but we went over the case. And I'm sure if he came up with a timeline, I just don't remember it.
Okay. No, I don't have anything further at this time.
Mr. Bird, please review.
Thank you, Howard. Dr. Brown, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jeff Crew here, representing Ms. Davis in this matter. Let me, some of the things you just talked about, you know, the autopsy report that you signed off on was several months later, is that correct?
I'm going to look, but you're probably right. It usually takes a while.
Okay, the death was on November the 17th of 2020, and you signed off on this report on September the 29th of 2021, is that correct?
Report here. Yes, that appears to be correct.
That would have been over 10 months later, is that right?
Correct.
And you, in answering the questions of Mr. Dwayne, you just mentioned that a lot of times you waited for the crime lab reports as far as toxicology and things of that nature, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're aware, are you not, that the toxicology report that was done by Amanda Cook was completed on December the 16th of 2020. Do you have any recollection of that?
Well, I don't have that in front of me, but that sounds right.
Okay, so it was about a month after the death, is that right?
That would be about right.
All right. And then there was another report done by Carla Turner, forensic toxologist, in your office that was completed on December the 23rd of 2020. Does that sound about right?
If that's on the report, yeah. That's
Okay.
fine.
So, I mean, were there any other reports that you were waiting on in a period of time from basically Christmas of 2020 until you signed off on your report at the end of September of the next year, 9 months or so later?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And you had mentioned that I guess your superior was Dr. Eisenstadt, is that correct?
Yes, he was the chief at the time.
And I guess from time to time you met with Dr. Eisenstadt concerning the cause of death in this matter.
I don't know how many times we've met. He is. You have to remember, I live in Ohio, so I come down 1 week a month, to either Macon or Pooler, Savannah, to do cases. So whenever I would be able to see him, would only be whenever I go up to headquarters.
Okay.
And if you say we had several meetings, I'll take the word.
All right.
But I don't remember.
And Mr. Dwayne just asked you some questions about when you met with Dr. Eisenstadt and other people in your office. Later on, like in September of 2021, to go ahead and get this autopsy report prepared. Is that right?
Yes.
And this was something that was done online with you and Dr. Eisenstadt and the district attorney's office here and the sheriff's department here, Houston County Sheriff's Department. Do you recall that?
I was here for that. I remember meeting with Eisenstadt, but I don't remember meeting online. If that's the case,
Well, I mean, do you remember talking to the district attorney's office about your findings?
not until recently.
Okay.
Because this was a case from 5.5 years ago, so.
Sure. Okay. But nonetheless, you wouldn't disagree that your office, being the GBI Division of Forensic Sciences, talked with the district attorney's office just immediately prior to you issuing or signing off on your autopsy report. Is that right?
That I don't know. I don't know who they talked to before I signed off on my report.
Okay. But you recognize that it was several months later.
Yes. This is during COVID too. Whenever I would, so
Sure.
when I came down, there were times of the lab had to be closed, and
Right.
so,
And was there ever any concerns that COVID may have been involved in this child's death?
no.
Just a second there. Dr. Brown, let me just ask you this. I take it that the autopsy was done within a day or so of the child dying. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
And this was done where? At the facility in Macon?
It was. Yeah, Central Lab. That was it.
Okay, Central Labs in Macon or Dry Branch actually?
Correct. Dry Branch, yes, that's the town or whatever.
Who all, as far as the photographs that were taken, who took those photographs? Did you take them or did?
No, I directed who took them. They were taken by our autopsy assistants. There's what they call death investigation specialists and forensic pathology assistants, and they're the ones who take all photographs.
All right. But in any event, and you were told originally that the child had some asthma problems. Is that right? Some respiratory problems.
Yeah, suppose they had breathing problems, and the story that we were told was that the child had breathing problems, that the boyfriend, caretaker, said the breathing problems, contacted the mother. Mother said, he said you gave him breathing treatment, he gave him another breathing treatment, evidently that didn't work. She said take him to the pediatrician.
All right. Now, you testified as to that you noticed some injuries to the top of the head or the back of the head. Is that right?
Yeah, some scalp hemorrhage.
Okay.
There was no injury to the brain or the skull.
Okay. But none of that contributed to the child's death.
That shouldn't have, no.
I mean, not at all. I mean, that's just typical in the child's existence. Is that fair?
I don't know that it wasn't part of the continuum, whether the child was receiving blunt force trauma at the same time. I don't know, but no, the scalp hemorrhage itself would not have caused this child's death.
All right. Now in your report, or there was some talk about this child that the injuries could have occurred anywhere from within 24 hours to 72 hours prior to the child's demise. Is that correct?
And that was in my report.
Well, I mean, once again, do you recall Dr. Eisenstadt telling you that was...
Objection, Your Honor, on hearsay at this point.
I don't think Dr. Eisenstadt's conclusions can come in. You can ask this witness if he reached that conclusion or not.
All right. Well, did you reach that conclusion that it was within 24 to 72 hours?
No, I didn't put a time on it.
You didn't put a time on it?
I mean, it was recent, but it was not, I can't tell you how many hours.
I mean, could it have been an hour before the child's death?
Doubtful.
Okay. Could
some of the injuries would have been in the process of healing. So we wouldn't have seen all the injuries that we saw. They'd all been scabs or some, like some of the injuries in the mouth, the injuries on the body would have healed, or they've been in the process of healing. In other words, scabbing over. So you don't get a scab the next day.
Okay, but did any of the injuries that she showed around the mouth there, did that contribute to the child's death?
No.
Okay. I'm talking about a lacerated liver.
That's correct.
Okay. And I understand that there's a term called lingering liver bleed. Is that a statement?
That word, I've never heard that term.
Okay. But we don't know when the injury occurred, do we?
I do not.
I mean, it's something that could have happened. As far as the liver is concerned, is that something that could have happened within, say, 6 hours of the child dying?
The liver was lacerated and it bled, and it just depends on how fast it bled. I don't know how long it took for it to happen.
You don't have an educated guess as to, if it was an hour before, 6 hours before.
Judge.
Objections overruled.
Do you have an educated opinion as to when it could have happened?
No.
Or how it could have happened?
It happened from blunt force trauma.
Okay. What is blunt force trauma? From a car wreck, you've already established that.
And they didn't tell me he was in a car wreck.
Okay. All right. It could have happened from someone hitting someone with a baseball bat.
Oh, absolutely could.
Okay.
Significant trauma to the abdomen caused the laceration of his liver.
And you don't know how that significant trauma occurred,
I do not.
or any suppositions now.
I do not.
Just a second, John, please. And once again, as far as the liver is concerned, would there be any, besides the laceration, any other injuries to the liver?
There was only the laceration that I saw.
Okay. And your testimony was that you saw some other bruising on the outside of the body, is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with the lacerated liver?
The ones on the contusions or bruising on his abdomen most certainly could have, because it also contused and bruised the inside of his internal organs. So that's where the blunt force trauma to the abdomen, and that's where the liver is located.
If a person has suffered from a lacerated liver, is there any way of telling or showing as to where the blood would exit the body? Would it exit the body through urine, through a bowel movement of some sort?
No.
No. Okay. Would blood come out of someone's mouth or nose or ears or anything like that?
It's in a confined space. The liver's in the peritoneal cavity. That's a cavity. There's no conduit out to the outside world from there, and it would stay in the cavity. It would flocculate or collect in soft tissue like the adipose tissue of the blood or the fatty tissue that surrounds these organs, and that's what we had.
And it could stay there for days.
It would usually, if it stayed there for days, it would have been clotted. Eventually it would clot. This blood was not clotted.
Just a second. Let me ask this question: if there were some evidence that in the hours or days previous to the child's demise, that would there be? Could infer from your opinion that the child would have thrown up blood or vomited blood.
No. Well, I mean, the vomiting from have a blow to the stomach is common for anybody. Okay, but I don't know. I guess I don't know what the question is. That if he threw up, it wouldn't be blood. It would be whatever's in the stomach contents.
Okay, but it would, I guess it would have nothing to do with the lacerated
The liver is in the same cavity as the bowel and the stomach, but they don't interconnect in any way. In other words, the liver tears, the blood, it comes out, goes out and into the tissue and muscle, and the fatty tissue around it, and it will stay there.
But have you seen situations happen where there's been a lacerated liver for a longer period of time than 24 to 72 hours?
Where it's been longer than that?
Yes.
Not being treated? No, I haven't seen that. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Dwayne?
No, you don't.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And you are free to go stay as you wish. You may be excused.